Did you know that some experts believe millions of people in California could soon face life-changing legal consequences because of new immigration enforcement policies? Imagine waking up one morning and hearing that a new rule could determine whether you can stay, work, or even remain in the state you've called home for years. That's exactly why a wave of discussion is spreading across California right now. Lawmakers are debating policies that critics claim could force many people to pack their bags almost overnight. But what are these laws really about, and who could actually be affected? Across social media and news headlines, people are asking the same question. Is California about to introduce some of the toughest immigration enforcement measures in years? Some say these policies are meant to improve security, employment regulation, and legal compliance, while others warn they could create fear and uncertainty for millions of families. The truth is far more complex than the headlines suggest, and most people don't yet understand what these changes could actually mean. In today's video, we're breaking down 10 shocking laws and policy changes being discussed that could dramatically impact immigration, housing, and employment in California. Some of these rules could reshape how businesses hire workers, how housing is rented, and how authorities verify residency status. So before rumors spread further, let's uncover what these laws really say, who they affect, and why everyone is talking about them. Number 1. Workplace Verification Crackdown. One of the biggest changes being discussed in California focuses on stricter workplace verification rules. For years, many businesses relied on standard identity checks when hiring employees. But under the new enforcement push, authorities are placing much stronger emphasis on verifying employment eligibility, immigration documents, and legal work permits. This means employers could soon face tighter regulations when hiring workers, especially in industries that rely heavily on large labor forces such as construction, agriculture, hospitality, and delivery services. At the center of this policy discussion is the expansion of systems like E-Verify, a digital verification program used to confirm whether employees are legally authorized to work in the United States. Some lawmakers believe that making these verification systems more widely used could reduce illegal hiring and ensure that all workers are properly documented. Supporters argue that this protects both the labor market and legitimate employees, ensuring that companies follow the same legal hiring standards. However, critics warn that stricter verification could also create serious challenges for businesses and workers alike. Many companies may need to completely restructure their hiring processes to comply with new rules. Smaller businesses, in particular, worry about administrative burdens, potential penalties, and complicated verification procedures. For workers, the situation could become even more stressful, as documentation checks may become more frequent and more detailed than before. Another concern is the possibility of heavy fines for employers who fail to verify workers properly. In some proposals, businesses that repeatedly violate employment verification rules could face severe penalties, including financial sanctions or even suspension of operating licenses. This raises a crucial question. Are these measures designed to protect the labor market, or could they unintentionally disrupt industries that depend on a large workforce? What's clear is that workplace verification policies are becoming a major focus of immigration and employment debates in California, and the effects could be felt across many sectors of the economy. What do you think about these changes? Do stricter hiring checks protect workers, or could they create more problems for businesses and families? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you appreciate the effort we put into explaining these complex laws, please subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it helps us bring you more powerful updates like this. Number 2. Housing eligibility rules. Another policy that is creating serious discussion across California involves new housing eligibility requirements. Housing in California has already been one of the most expensive and competitive markets in the United States, and lawmakers are now examining stricter regulations related to who qualifies for certain housing opportunities. While the goal of these discussions is to improve compliance with housing laws and ensure fair access, many experts believe the impact could be felt by thousands of families across the state. Under some proposed measures, landlords and property managers may be required to conduct more detailed identity and residency verification before renting properties. This means rental applications could include additional documentation checks to confirm a tenant's legal status or residency eligibility. Supporters of these measures argue that this approach ensures that housing systems remain transparent and that all applicants follow the same rules. However, critics worry that these changes could create new challenges for both renters and landlords. Property owners may need to implement new verification systems and stricter screening procedures, which could slow down the rental process. At the same time, renters who already struggle to secure housing may face even more obstacles when applying for apartments or homes. Some housing experts also point out that California's housing crisis is already severe, with millions of residents dealing with rising rent prices, housing shortages, and limited availability of affordable homes. Adding new verification requirements may increase administrative steps for landlords while also making the process more stressful for tenants. Because of this, housing eligibility rules have become a major topic of debate. Supporters say these policies create fairness and accountability, while critics fear they could worsen the housing shortage and create additional pressure on vulnerable communities. The reality is that housing policy changes often carry far-reaching consequences, and even small legal adjustments can influence how the entire housing market operates. Now we want to hear from you. Do you think stricter housing rules will protect the system, or could they make the housing crisis even worse? Share your opinion in the comments, and if you enjoy these deep breakdowns of major laws, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It takes just one click but helps us keep creating videos like this. Number 3. Benefit access limits. Another major change being discussed involves new limits on access to certain public benefits. Programs designed to support families with health care, food assistance, and housing help have long been part of California's social support system. However, policymakers are now examining whether stricter verification rules should apply to determine who qualifies for these benefits and how eligibility is confirmed. Under some proposed policy adjustments, individuals applying for certain assistance programs may be required to provide additional documentation proving residency status, income details, and legal eligibility. Supporters of these measures argue that the goal is to ensure that government resources are distributed fairly and that assistance reaches people who meet the program's legal requirements. They believe that stronger verification could reduce fraud and help maintain the long-term stability of these programs. But critics say the situation may not be that simple. Many advocacy groups warn that stricter documentation rules could make it harder for vulnerable families to access support when they need it most. Some people who legitimately qualify for help might struggle to provide paperwork quickly enough, especially if they face language barriers, administrative delays, or complex application systems. In these situations, even small policy changes can have large ripple effects across communities. There is also concern about how these rules might affect mixed-status households, families where some members have legal status while others do not. Experts say that uncertainty around eligibility could create fear and discourage people from applying for assistance programs even when they legally qualify. Because of these factors, the debate around public benefits has become one of the most sensitive parts of the broader policy conversation. Supporters emphasize accountability and fairness in government spending, while critics focus on the potential humanitarian impact. What's clear is that any change to benefit eligibility rules could influence thousands of families across California. What's your opinion on this issue? Should public benefits have stricter eligibility rules, or should support programs remain easier to access for struggling families? Let us know in the comments, and if you value the effort we put into researching and explaining these laws, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it truly helps us keep creating videos like this. Number 4. Federal cooperation shift. Another policy discussion that has sparked intense debate involves a possible shift in cooperation between California authorities and federal immigration agencies. For many years, California has followed policies that limit how local law enforcement works with federal immigration enforcement. These policies were designed to build trust between immigrant communities and local authorities, ensuring that people feel safe reporting crimes without fear of immigration consequences. However, new policy proposals are exploring situations where limited cooperation with federal authorities could increase, particularly in cases involving serious criminal activity. Supporters of these discussions argue that cooperation between agencies can improve public safety and help identify individuals who may pose a risk to communities. They believe that information sharing between local and federal authorities could strengthen law enforcement coordination and improve the handling of criminal cases. At the same time, critics worry that even small policy changes could create uncertainty and fear in immigrant communities. Many advocacy groups say that when people believe local police may share information with federal immigration authorities, they may hesitate to report crimes, cooperate with investigations, or seek help when they need it. According to these concerns, maintaining strong community trust is essential for effective law enforcement. Another important factor is how carefully these policies are designed. Experts say that clear legal boundaries and strict guidelines are necessary if any level of cooperation increases. Without clear limits, Misunderstandings between agencies could create confusion about when information can be shared and when it must remain confidential. Because of these complex issues, the debate over federal cooperation has become one of the most politically sensitive topics in California. Supporters emphasize security and coordination, while critics highlight community trust and civil rights. As policymakers continue discussing these ideas, the final decisions could shape how local and federal authorities interact for years to come. Now we want to hear from you. Should local authorities cooperate more with federal immigration agencies, or should California keep strict limits in place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you appreciate the research behind videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it helps us keep bringing you important updates. Number 5. Visa compliance checks. Another major issue gaining attention is the growing focus on visa compliance and monitoring. Every year, thousands of people enter the United States legally through student visas, work visas, tourist visas, and other temporary permits. However, authorities have increasingly raised concerns about visa overstays, where individuals remain in the country after their legal stay has expired. To address this issue, policymakers are discussing stronger systems that can track visa timelines more accurately and ensure compliance with immigration rules. These measures may include improved digital databases, faster updates between immigration agencies, and better coordination between federal and state authorities. The goal, according to supporters, is to ensure that temporary visas are used exactly as intended and that individuals follow the conditions attached to their permits. Supporters argue that stricter visa compliance protects the integrity of the immigration system. They believe that when visa rules are enforced properly, it creates a fairer system for people who follow the legal process. By improving monitoring systems, authorities can identify overstays more quickly and prevent misuse of temporary immigration programs. However, critics say these changes could create additional pressure on international students, workers, and visitors who are already navigating complex immigration processes. Visa holders often face strict timelines, paperwork requirements, and changing policies that can make compliance difficult. Even small mistakes in documentation or delays in processing could create serious legal complications. Experts also emphasize the importance of clear communication and transparent systems so that visa holders understand exactly what is required of them. When rules are complicated or poorly explained, people may unintentionally violate regulations. Because of these concerns, visa compliance enforcement remains a sensitive topic. While authorities aim to strengthen immigration oversight, many believe the focus should also remain on fairness, transparency, and proper guidance for visa holders who want to follow the law. Now it's your turn to share your thoughts. Should governments enforce stricter visa monitoring, or should the system focus more on helping people stay compliant? Comment below and join the discussion, and if you appreciate the time and research we put into videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it helps us continue bringing you important updates. Number 6. Digital tracking systems. Another policy area gaining attention involves the expansion of digital monitoring and identity verification systems. As technology continues to evolve, government agencies are increasingly using advanced databases and tracking tools to verify identity, monitor compliance with regulations, and improve the accuracy of official records. In California, discussions about these systems have raised questions about how technology could shape future enforcement and documentation processes. One of the main ideas behind these systems is the use of connected digital databases that allow different government departments to verify information more quickly. For example, identity records, driver's license databases, and employment documentation systems could potentially be linked to improve verification accuracy. Supporters believe that this approach could reduce paperwork, speed up administrative processes, and help prevent identity fraud. Technology such as automated identity verification, digital documentation checks, and license plate recognition systems has already been used in some areas for security and regulatory purposes. Policymakers discussing these tools say that expanding digital systems could make enforcement more efficient while also improving public safety. However, these proposals have also raised concerns about privacy and data protection. Critics worry that expanding monitoring technologies could lead to excessive surveillance or misuse of personal data if strong protections are not in place. Privacy advocates argue that governments must establish clear limits on how information is collected, stored, and shared between agencies. Experts say that the success of any digital tracking system depends heavily on transparency, strict privacy safeguards, and clear oversight rules. Without strong regulations, The technology could create mistrust among communities that fear their personal information might be used in ways they did not expect. Because of these factors, digital monitoring tools remain a complex and controversial topic. While technology can improve efficiency and security, policymakers must balance these benefits with the need to protect privacy and individual rights. We'd really like to hear your opinion on this one. Do you think digital tracking systems make society safer, or do they raise serious privacy concerns? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you appreciate the effort we put into researching these topics, please subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it helps us continue creating videos like this. Number 7. Employer penalty expansion. Another major development being discussed involves stronger penalties for employers who violate hiring laws. For many years, governments have required businesses to confirm that employees are legally allowed to work. However, policymakers are now exploring tougher enforcement measures aimed at companies that repeatedly ignore these rules. The goal, according to supporters, is to ensure that businesses follow fair hiring practices and maintain compliance with employment laws. Under these discussions, companies that fail to properly verify their workers' legal work authorization could face significantly higher fines and stricter penalties. In some proposals, repeated violations could even lead to serious consequences such as suspension of business licenses or temporary shutdown orders. Lawmakers pushing these changes argue that strong penalties are necessary to discourage illegal hiring and create equal conditions for businesses that already follow the law. Supporters believe that stricter enforcement could protect both the labor market and workers themselves. They argue that when employers hire undocumented workers without verification, it can lead to lower wages, unsafe working conditions, and unfair competition. By enforcing hiring rules more strictly, authorities hope to prevent exploitation and ensure that employment standards are applied equally across industries. However, critics worry that these policies could also create challenges for businesses, especially small companies that lack large administrative teams. Many small business owners say that immigration paperwork and verification systems are already complicated. Adding stricter penalties could increase the pressure on companies that may unintentionally make mistakes in documentation. Experts suggest that alongside stronger penalties, governments should also provide clear guidance, training resources, and support systems to help businesses understand and follow hiring regulations correctly. When companies clearly understand the rules, compliance becomes much easier. Because of this, the debate around employer penalties continues to grow. Supporters emphasize fairness and worker protection, while critics highlight the potential burden on businesses that are already trying to navigate complex regulations. Now we want to hear your perspective. Should governments punish employers more strictly for hiring violations, or should the focus be on helping businesses comply with the rules? Tell us what you think in the comments, and if you appreciate the time and effort we put into these videos, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it helps us keep bringing you important updates. Number 8. Deportation priority changes. Another major topic gaining attention is the discussion around changes in deportation priorities. Immigration enforcement agencies often focus on certain categories of cases first, depending on policy goals and available resources. Recently, there has been growing debate about whether these priorities could shift to include a wider range of immigration violations, which could potentially affect more individuals than before. In many enforcement systems, authorities typically focus on individuals involved in serious criminal activity. However, some policy discussions suggest that enforcement priorities could expand to include additional categories such as repeated immigration violations, visa overstays, or individuals who fail to comply with legal immigration procedures. Supporters of these potential changes believe that consistent enforcement helps maintain the credibility of immigration laws and ensures that rules apply equally to everyone. Advocates for stronger enforcement argue that when immigration laws are applied consistently, it encourages people to follow proper legal pathways. They believe that clearer enforcement priorities could reduce confusion about immigration regulations and strengthen the overall immigration system. On the other hand, critics worry that expanding deportation priorities could create fear and uncertainty within immigrant communities. Many families include individuals with different legal statuses, and changes in enforcement priorities could affect households in complex ways. Advocacy organizations often emphasize that enforcement policies should focus on serious threats to public safety rather than broad categories that could impact otherwise law-abiding residents. Another key concern involves legal clarity and due process. Experts say that if enforcement priorities change, it is essential for authorities to clearly explain how the policies will be implemented and ensure that individuals have access to proper legal procedures. Because of these factors, the debate surrounding deportation priorities remains highly sensitive. Supporters focus on the importance of consistent enforcement, while critics highlight the human impact that policy changes may bring to families and communities. We'd really like to hear your opinion on this issue. Should deportation enforcement focus only on serious crimes, or should it apply more broadly to immigration violations? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you appreciate the effort we put into explaining these complex topics, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it helps us continue creating videos like this. Number 9. Local enforcement powers. Another major development being discussed involves the possible expansion of local enforcement authority when it comes to immigration-related rules. Traditionally, immigration enforcement in the United States has primarily been handled by federal agencies. However, policy discussions in some areas have raised the possibility that local agencies could play a slightly larger role in certain situations, especially when other legal violations are involved. Supporters of these discussions believe that allowing local authorities limited powers to cooperate or assist in specific cases could improve public safety and faster response to serious violations. They argue that when different levels of law enforcement communicate effectively, it becomes easier to identify individuals who may already have outstanding warrants, criminal records, or unresolved immigration issues. For example, some proposals suggest that local agencies may gain access to shared federal databases that allow them to confirm a person's identity or legal status during certain investigations. According to supporters, this could help prevent fraud, reduce identity-related crimes, and ensure that individuals who break multiple laws cannot easily avoid accountability. However, critics believe that expanding local enforcement powers could create serious trust issues between communities and law enforcement. Many community advocates argue that when local police become involved in immigration matters, people may become afraid to report crimes or cooperate with investigations. This could make communities less safe rather than more secure. Experts emphasize that if any expansion of authority occurs, it would require clear legal boundaries, strict oversight, and strong protections for civil rights. Policymakers would need to carefully balance enforcement goals with the importance of maintaining trust between communities and law enforcement agencies. Because of these concerns, the issue of local enforcement powers remains highly debated. Supporters highlight the benefits of coordination and security, while critics warn about potential consequences for community relationships and public trust. Now we want to hear from you. Should local authorities have more power to enforce immigration-related laws, or should this remain strictly a federal responsibility? Tell us your opinion in the comments, and if you appreciate the effort we put into researching and explaining these topics, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it helps us continue creating videos like this. Number 10. Emergency enforcement powers. The final policy discussion that has raised serious attention involves the possibility of emergency enforcement powers that authorities can activate during extraordinary situations. Governments often maintain special legal mechanisms that allow them to respond quickly to crises such as public safety threats, border emergencies, or sudden increases in immigration-related violations. These measures are typically designed to give officials temporary authority to act faster than usual in order to manage urgent situations. In the context of California and broader national immigration debates, some policymakers have discussed whether stronger emergency tools may be needed to handle sudden surges in enforcement cases or administrative backlogs. These measures could potentially allow authorities to prioritize certain cases, speed up legal reviews, and allocate additional resources to enforcement agencies during periods of unusually high demand. Supporters argue that emergency powers can be necessary when governments face situations that require rapid coordination between agencies and faster decision-making. In their view, having legal frameworks prepared in advance ensures that authorities can respond effectively if a sudden challenge arises. They believe that these mechanisms are about preparedness rather than permanent enforcement changes. However, critics often express concern about how emergency powers might be used. Some legal experts warn that when governments receive expanded authority during emergencies, there must be clear limits, strict oversight, and strong legal protections to prevent misuse. Without these safeguards, temporary measures could potentially affect people's rights or lead to decisions being made too quickly. Because of these concerns, emergency enforcement policies remain a highly sensitive and debated topic. Supporters focus on preparedness and efficiency, while critics emphasize the importance of protecting civil liberties and ensuring that emergency powers remain temporary and carefully controlled. Now we'd really like to hear your thoughts. Do you believe emergency enforcement powers are necessary for security, or could they be risky if misused? Drop your opinion in the comments, and if you appreciate the effort we put into researching and explaining these complex issues, please subscribe to our channel. It's just one click, but it helps us continue bringing you important updates. As you can see, the debate surrounding these 10 major policy changes and enforcement discussions is far more complex than the dramatic headlines often suggest. Immigration, housing, employment, and law enforcement policies are deeply connected to economic stability, community safety, and human lives. When lawmakers propose changes in these areas, the effects can ripple through entire communities, influencing businesses, families, and local governments at the same time. Supporters of stricter rules believe these measures are necessary to maintain order, fairness, and accountability within the system. They argue that stronger verification, clearer enforcement, and better coordination between agencies help ensure that laws are applied consistently. From their perspective, these policies protect legal workers, prevent fraud, and strengthen the credibility of immigration and employment regulations. At the same time, critics worry about the human impact of aggressive enforcement policies. Many families include individuals with different immigration statuses, and sudden legal changes can create uncertainty and fear. Community advocates often emphasize that policy changes should balance enforcement with compassion, ensuring that vulnerable people are not unintentionally harmed by complex legal systems. The reality is that policies surrounding immigration and enforcement continue to evolve as governments respond to new economic conditions, political priorities, and public concerns. That is why staying informed is so important. Understanding what these laws actually say, rather than relying on rumors or misleading headlines, can help individuals make better decisions and prepare for possible changes. In the end, these debates reflect a broader question facing many societies today: how to balance security, fairness, and opportunity in a rapidly changing world. While opinions on these policies differ widely, one thing remains certain: decisions made today will shape the future of communities across California for years to come. As these discussions continue, keeping an open mind and staying informed will be the key to understanding what lies ahead.